Now, before we dig into the layout updates, I want to give you a very quick tour about the layout. I think one of the questions we get quite a lot on both Facebook and Instagram is how this all fits together. Although there's a track plan online, although the running shots I think give a pretty good tour, it's not always clear about where things go. So, from behind where the camera is at the moment, we start at Anderstadt station, the main terminus station, and then that moves around here to the station on the right, my right, your left. So you can see is Monbifeld. This is a small passing station that then comes around and joins onto the main running loop that we call the lower line. From there, it goes under the tunnel, under this teardrop, through this station here that we call Barettberg, back round the back of the pond, and then it can come through here, continuing on the lower line of the Anderstadt station, and then it comes under this tunnel here, back round, and kind of joins up to the lower line where the terminus station joins. So that's the lower line, but you can obviously see there's also an upper line here that's on top of the teardrop shape. This is a double reversing loop, and it makes its way up and down, around the back of the pond, and to the front again. How do you join there? Well, as your train comes around the pond, there is a junction over here that splits off, and it gives a steady incline up, running parallel both to the upper line and to the lower line, and joins here into one of the reversing loops, and then trains can rarely go back round. What this means is trains can run all the way from Anderstadt station to any of the points of the layout and back again with reasonable ease. So when you have open days, when people are watching, when people are exploring the garden, it feels like the trains go somewhere and come back somewhere. It kind of gives a lot of operational and watching interest, which is one of the key things that we really wanted to look at. So yeah, that's a very quick overview of how the whole layout fits together. So this is Anderstadt station. It's the first station you find when you walk into the garden. It's also the only terminus station. 4 tracks, 3 platforms, a lot of area for kind of storing trains, storing rolling stock, and lots of head shunts and uncoupling ramps to give operational interest. This area needs a lot of work. So at the moment you can see some of the platforms are still uneven, these need to be leveled out. Also we've had a lot of subsidence here, so a lot of the track is also uneven. This needs reballasting, topping up, filling the gaps, and hopefully make it look a little bit tidier. I think there's also a little bit more planting we have to do here. To me, I think there's too much planting at the back, not enough at the front. So that's one of the things we want to look into. In terms of scenery in the buildings, I think a few more buildings need tweaking and changing. The light seed wiring up in both the station building and goodshed and anything else that we're going to do, as well as the accessories. So things like the uncoupling ranks of the signals will also have those. Moving on to signals and point work, we've got a lot of work we have to do here. There's about 14 devices that will need to be connected, including the points, the signals, and the uncoupling ramps. At the moment, none of these, or very few of these, have got the switch motors in, nor any of the wires to go to them. This is going to be quite a big job, but I'm looking forward to doing it. One of the reasons this is really important is that we found on our open days there's a lot of operational interest in the layout over there. So the continuous circuits where the trains can run, there's lots of things going on. People can see trains appearing, whereas this part of the railway can get quite static unless you've got an operator over here. One of the interests that we do have is bringing automation to layout, and this is going to be our test bed. This is going to be kind of our minimal viable automation part. The idea is to be able to have trains running and shuttling back and forth between here and Monbifeld station. So that's something we're really looking forward to doing in 2023. The last thing to call out is this gap here. So what you can probably see is the train comes around, it ends nowhere, and we have these 2 brick pillars here. So this is actually the idea to put a placing bridge so the trains can run in and out here, and they run straight into the garage, into the workshop. At the moment, that's just a piece of wood with a piece of track tied to it. I want to make that a little bit easier, so it's going to be genuinely just lift in, lift out, and know that the tracks are aligned and the power's connected. So that's another one of the projects we're going to have in 2023. So this is Monbifeld station. This is the first station that you come to after you leave Anderstadt. There's as with most of the stations we have, there's a passing siding and a small head shunt. The station building was put in towards the tail end of last year. It's not got any lights in, but it's certainly something we want to add. A few changes we need to make is I think we need to tidy up the wiring that you can see running into the junction boxes, both on the left hand side and on the right hand side. There's also need to be some signals that go in.
And much like Anderstadt, I said this will be kind of where the shuttle run on the left hand side of the garden is going to end, at least for during open days. So you just have that continuous running. You need to make sure this is all prepped and wired for DCC automation. We'll be doing a separate video on how we do that. So one of the pieces of work that we're really to get on is understanding how we hide these concrete blocks that we've used to build up the upper and lower lines. So the original plan was actually just to use plants, and I think you've seen in some places this is done quite well. It's hidden most of it, although there's a bit more growth to do. That's probably going to happen over the next kind of year or 2 years. There are other places though where this hasn't really worked as well, and you see here we've essentially cheated and tried to hide it behind a stone. We've been thinking of a few different ways to do this, because although there are places like this where it's a lot easier to hide in plants, some of the areas over at Steinertal don't have that same level of luxury. So what are we planning to do? Well, we bought a number of these are kind of the tiles that you'll find on a backsplash in their kitchen. We bought these from B&Q, and the plan is actually just to attach them to these. So instead, what you're getting there is a sort of style of retaining wall that I think actually looks really awesome. Along with those, you get these like little end bits. So that's how they're planning to kind of cover some of these spaces. These tunnels have been annoying me for a while. They work great, which is unfortunate. We've had problems with train stopping, but I really hate that they look really unfinished. So there's a couple of things that we've been exploring in terms of how we work with these. First of these is we made these cement molds. I think they actually look really pretty cool. Maybe a little bit of detailing, a little paint work required to finish it off, but I think they're pretty good. They're very fragile, and you can actually see on this one here, where it actually started to crack when it came out of the mold. A few of those have actually already broken just by picking up and moving them. This tunnel is a little bit annoying because of the positioning. As you can see here, it does pretty much fit, and because some of the rock work has already gone in, it's going to make it a little bit more difficult to fit, and we still have this problem here of what's happening around the side. The second option we have are these knock tunnel portals. Now, for all I can tell is these seem to be sold out everywhere. When Nikki and I went to the US, I found a US site that sold these, so I managed to get these shipped to my parents-in-law. A lot bigger than I expected. I mean, a lot lighter, and certainly seem to be less fragile. They're made of like a foamy material, so I'm assuming they're actually pretty easy to cut. They're a lot bigger. The tunnel board itself is not that much different, a little bit, but certainly the frame around it is much larger. And I think this works really well for some of the other places on the layout, but when we put it over here, it might be too big, or it might solve my problem of hiding things that I don't want to see. So yeah, this is something I need to work on, understand what's going to happen there. So this is Barettberg station. It's a small station. It's the only station on the upper line, so there's passing and a very small head shunt at the far side. And this is actually one of the stations you can view from most of the house, so both from the lounge, kitchen, and the conservatory behind me. While we're doing a little bit of work here, you can probably see that the ballast is a slightly different colour. So reballasting, we've got a lot of sinkage here. It was very noticeable as the train came down this way, picked up a lot of speed, and if you saw it going back the other way, some of them were struggling up the hill a little bit. There's actually quite a lot of work to do here, primarily on the scenery. So, two things. These lampposts are still quite loose. As you can see here, they keep falling over. The wiring is also a little bit shoddy. Looks great in the evening, but certainly some things to tidy up, along with these wires that are currently just running over the top of the ground. Similar with a bit of scenery, all needs tidying up here to make it working. I think we're having a few problems with the decoders that control these points. The decoder's actually not set up properly. So there's a point that enters the station here. The DCC system's ever reset, so you press the emergency stop button and you just cut the power, it will throw back to default position, which theoretically is really useful, which is why I set it up that way. But if you have a train parked in this station, and the train comes around after you've had an emergency stoppage, and you're not paying attention, there's a crash. So it's happened more than once. The other thing to call out here is what's under this paving slab. So there is actually trunking that runs just from the outside of the garage into here, and this is where it all comes out. Essentially all the wires for the track power, for the control, for the points, and the 12 volts that we use for the lighting on the buildings and the scenery, this all comes out of here. Now, underneath this, it's a complete mess. One of the things we'll be doing is taking it out, cleaning out the mud that's slid into it and tidying it up. This will also act as the base paving slab for the station building that will go here. Unfortunately, a few weeks ago in Jersey, we had some really strong winds and we destroyed it. So there's a little bit of work to do in the workshop with getting put that together and getting the lights set up and kind of tidying up the station. The final thing to note in this space, the plants have done actually pretty well. There's a few maybe that have seen better days. Nick and I are waiting until the spring just to see how they recover, and if they don't, maybe have to put a few more small conifers in. So this is one of my favourite parts of the layout. It's just a level crossing, there's nothing actually particularly special about it. The reason it's one of my favourites is when I was a kid I went to visit a garden railway. The gentleman that had it had this same kind of like level crossing or grade crossing you had to step over to get through. I thought it was amazing. It was really interesting, and it kind of really brought the garden railway into the garden and connected the two, so they weren't that separate. The problem is, when I designed this, I designed it very poorly in the sense that from this side it's not so bad. You can see the trains coming to the station, and people will tend to wait on both sides. This side is actually a blind tunnel. There have been more than one occurrence where people have been essentially walking across here as a train has come out, or they've caught the tail end of a train and either kicked the locomotive or the wagon. So, what are we going to do about it? Well, I want to try this. These are waterproof red LEDs. They run 12 volts, which is essentially the same as what all the lights in the buildings run. So the plan is to insert these over here. We can hook them up to the 12 volts DC, but then you're going to say, well, that means the red light's going to be on all the time. I mean, as a first version, it's not the worst thing in the world. At least people can notice that the train's going to be crossing there. But one of the things we can do is that as we're looking a lot more into DCC automation, this is one of the areas that maybe we can start on. There's a few pieces of equipment you can do that says, hey, we know there's a train in the tunnel, there's a train in this section of track. Use that to trigger a command to turn the relay on or off. And that's actually what we're going to try. I've ordered some parts for it. I'm hoping those parts are going to be here in the next few weeks.
So that's it for our first layout update video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please like and subscribe, and we'll leave you now with some running shots of the layout. Thanks a lot.